something very interesting was carried by the New York Times yesterday, which was an interview with the new Egyptian president, where he made it very clear that things were not going to be, running the same way they had been for a long time, and that the United States needed to change its attitudes towards that entire part of the Muslim world, and that he was under different kinds of pressures now, that he just wasn't going to respond in the way the Americans wanted him to. And I think he was obviously putting it very politely and very mildly, but that is the sentiment in large parts of the world, including places like Pakistan and indeed Afghanistan, where I think there has been a sense, and again, this goes back to a kind of deep disconnect between the historical memory of people in this part of the world and people there. The way we look at history, the way we in America look at the history of the 20th century, where events like the Cold War or the two world wars are so much more important than anything that happened in Asia. We don't really think about decolonization, which was the major event for Asia, and that was the major event of the 20th century. Insofar as the two world wars were important, they were important in weakening the power of the West and the power of Europe in particular. So it's a completely different way of looking at history. So if you think that the 20th century was where, we won two world wars, defeated communism, defeated Nazism, and now we can remake the world, the rest of the world, in our own image. That kind of vision clashes very rudely with the vision created in Asia in the last 150 years, which have all to do with self-determination, which have to do with, describing, outlining your destinies, taking control of your lives, taking control over your own sort of destiny, and really living with dignity in a wider world where nobody tells you what to do. This was the whole impulse behind the anti-colonial movement, that people had been ordered around for far too long. So in a curious way, there is this strange sort of incompatibility now, and which needs to be bridged urgently, is that we just have a very different idea of, how we should be in the world, in the wider world, which creates these kinds of problems. And then, of course, we reach for very simple explanations like, oh, they must hate our freedoms, or, they've been sort of, there's this irrational Muslim rage, which is obviously been lingering there for a long time because they've all failed, and they're all completely resentful of successful societies and so on and so forth. So any number of culturalist, pseudo-psychological explanations about this, but we have to reckon with the political and historical side of that, I think, more and more urgently.